I've taken 50 of the greatest video games ever made and described them in the least helpful way possible. 5 rounds, 10 games each. All you have to do is name the game before the timer runs out. Simple. We're starting this quiz at work with unpaid labour and weird jobs. Here's the first one. You punch trees, build houses, and spend far too long avoiding green things that hiss. Yes, that's Minecraft. Had to get that one out the way. For number 2, chaotic chefs sprint round collapsing kitchens, shouting orders nobody hears while meals catch fire for no reason. It's Overcooked. Okay, for 3 then. A god game where you design a dream home, then trap a man in a doorless room for crying about a dirty dish. The Sims. That brings back memories. Right, next up is an unpaid product testing role involving a passive-aggressive toaster and a gun that shoots doors. Yep, Portal. So, 5 on the list. You inherit a farm and immediately abandon it for fishing, mining, and gifting mayonnaise to villagers until one agrees to marry you. That is Stardew Valley. Never underestimate the pulling power of homemade mayonnaise. Number 6. A new island resident spends months performing unpaid manual labour to repay a raccoon with questionable lending practices. That's Animal Crossing. It's like the capitalist version of Animal Farm. 7 is you attempt to solve traffic congestion for 8 hours, fail, and then delete your entire city because one ambulance got stuck behind a bin lorry. That is Cities Skylines. Oh dear. Right, next up. A border control officer in a bleak state stamps passports and develops a stress ulcer while separating families over a missing stamp. The answer is Papers, Please. I bet that's someone's idea of fun. Anyway, number 9. An unplanned deep-sea salvage contract where a survivor spends 40 hours hoarding titanium and building an underwater glass box to avoid looking at scary fish. Yes, Subnautica! And so our final game of the round? A gig economy delivery job across a collapsed America featuring hazardous terrain, ghost babies, and no tipping option. It's Death Stranding. Right, from jobs you'd actually apply for to people you're stuck looking after whether you like it or not. Round 2, babysitting and unlikely escorts. Starting with a grumpy man escorts a sarcastic teenager across the country, fights angry mushrooms, and endures her terrible jokes. Of course, The Last of Us. They were great jokes. Right, number 2. A government employee flies to a quaint Spanish village to collect a politician's daughter, with the friendly locals eager to show off their pitchforks and chainsaws. Yes, that's Resident Evil 4. Number 3. An emotionally unavailable father takes his son on an aggressively overcomplicated scattering of ashes. It's God of War. Finding closure taken to incredible lengths. Okay, for 4 then. A monster hunter searches for his magical surrogate daughter, but repeatedly stops to play a tavern card game with local innkeepers. Yes, The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Here's 5. an overwhelmed teenager discovers that babysitting becomes much harder once the rats arrive. The answer is A Plague Tale: Innocence. Well, if you see rats when you're babysitting, you're about to become an expert in torch maintenance. Number 6. A man escorts a girl who can open portals, yet somehow still needs help climbing ladders. Yes, BioShock Infinite. Superb. Right, next up is a convicted felon teaches a small girl to cut her hair and shoot zombies, while mediating arguments between adults making awful life choices. Yep, Telltale's The Walking Dead. Number 8 then. A small boy wakes up next to a giant catbird and spends hours trying to get it to do anything it's supposed to. That's The Last Guardian. Anyway, number 9. A photojournalist uses lawnmowers to save survivors who possess significantly less intelligence than the zombies trying to eat them. Yep, Dead Rising. It's never the zombies you need to worry about. And finishing the round with this one. A horned boy holds hands with a glowing girl and drags her through a desolate castle while she refuses to walk above a gentle dawdle. The answer is Eco. So, from escort missions to epic ambitions. Round 3, high fantasy and other huge maps. Number 1. A death row prisoner is hailed as the ultimate dragon slayer by the locals, who then proceed to ask if he can deliver a letter. Yes, that's the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Right, number 2. A medieval recruit drinks strong poison and fights darkspawn, but mostly manages messy love triangles around campfires. Yes, that's Dragon Age Origins. On to 3. An adventurer wakes up with a parasite in their brain, then spends 100 hours looting crates, romancing a vampire, and accidentally pushing NPCs off ledges. Yep, Baldur's Gate 3. I think we've all had days like that. So, for number 4. A courier survives an exceptionally bad performance review and immediately starts influencing regional politics. Yep, that pretty much describes Fallout New Vegas. Next up is a spiky-haired mercenary with a compensatingly large sword joins a group of eco-terrorists to stop an energy firm from killing the planet. Yep, it could only be Final Fantasy VII. Right, number 6. The galaxy's survival depends entirely on one person being surprisingly good at making friends. Yep, Mass Effect 2. Right, 7 is an MMO where the real endgame is convincing 39 strangers to stop standing in the fire. Yes, World of Warcraft. I'm sure some did it on purpose. Number 8. An orphan buys the local real estate market, gets fat on pies, and saves the land purely to spite the man who shot them. That is Fable 2. Right, number 9. A hero clicks a mouse 1,000,000 times to loot glowing trousers from the Lord of Terror. Yep, Diablo 2. Here's number 10. A teenager with a giant key joins Donald Duck and Goofy to fight darkness using the power of friendship and complex corporate licensing agreements. And that was Kingdom Hearts. Righty-o. So, from fantasy lands to felonies, we turn to round 4, criminals, heists, and auto theft. First up is 3 men with varying degrees of emotional stability take turns committing crimes across Los Santos, interrupted occasionally by a round of golf. Of course, Grand Theft Auto 5. Those golfers, eh? So, number 2. A freelancer discovers that the gig economy can always get worse. Yes, if you said Cyberpunk 2077, you've got the point. And number 3. A cowboy with tuberculosis chases one last score, but mostly ends up in the rain, coughing and looking for his friends. That's Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't think the rain will help his TB very much. Anyway, here's number 4. A vigilante hacker personally fixes an entire city's surveillance state problems using only a smartphone. Yes, Watch Dogs. Okay, number 5. An Italian nobleman puts on a hoodie to avenge his family and spends his time buying oil paintings, climbing churches, and diving into haystacks. The answer is Assassin's Creed 2. Jumping into hay is much less reliable in real life. Next up is the president responds to an alien invasion with alarming confidence. That is Saints Row 4, absolute classic. 7 then. 4 men in clown masks rob a bank, a museum and a grocery store while shouting "Dallas is down" every 4 seconds. Yes, Payday 2. Okay, number 8. A backpacking holiday escalates far beyond the insurance policy when a tourist becomes a tattooed jungle killer. Yes, that's Far Cry 3. Well, travelling can be very stressful for some people. And now for 9. A cop infiltrates a Hong Kong triad and discovers he enjoys the karaoke and street racing more than he hates his job. The answer, Sleeping Dogs. And for the last one in this round, a barcoded bald man travels the world, attends fancy parties, and kills people using nothing but a rubber duck and the nearest kitchen utensil. Of course, it's Hitman. No one ever suspects the tall, visually striking stranger who joined the kitchen staff for 5 minutes. So, now it's the last round, and we're going out in a blaze of glory. It's called Pointing Guns and Spraying Bullets. Starting with an angry man who was asleep for far too long wakes up and immediately begins dismantling Hell's middle management using a shotgun and sheer irritation. Yes, Doom 2016. I can get quite irritable if I oversleep. Number 2 is professional athletes settle sponsorship opportunities by shooting one another on live television. That's Apex Legends. Okay, next up is this classic. A mustachioed guy in a boonie hat yells military jargon while you crawl through Chernobyl dressed as a bush. Of course, that's Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Right, number 4. 9 wildly unqualified contractors spend years fighting over industrial facilities nobody actually wants. Yes, Team Fortress 2. Number 5. A man in a green suit fights aliens, drives a jeep off a cliff, and repeatedly ignores advice from a floating light bulb. That is Halo Combat Evolved. Turns out the light bulb wasn't particularly helpful anyway. Right, number 6. 4 survivors run from safe house to safe house, shouting pills here, while frantically trying not to be hugged by a witch. Yes, Left 4 Dead. Sounds about right. For 7 we have... A player spends 15 seconds carefully buying weapons, only to get sniped through a wooden door 1 second after the round starts. That is Counter-Strike. Yeah, money well spent. Oh well, here's number 8. Very large men with very large guns chainsaw their way through an underground civilization while occasionally shouting about their feelings. Well, if you said Gears of War, then you've got the point. And now for 9. A team of international superheroes repeatedly fail to move a glowing cart 2 blocks down a street because everyone refuses to play a healing character. Yes, that's Overwatch. And the final game. A physicist arrives in a city, picks up a can, and overthrows a totalitarian alien regime with a crowbar and a gravity-defying leaf blower. That was Half-Life 2, helpfully reminding us to always pick up our trash. Okay, and that is all 50 video games done. How did you get on? Let us know your own terrible video game descriptions, we'd love to hear them. We hope you had fun. If you did, a like is always appreciated. Hit subscribe for the next quiz and check out this one right here. Cheerio!